Today we are sitting with Herb Somers at the Jacob Burns Law Library at GW Law, exploring his life and career in law librarianship. Herb is the reference foreign and international law librarian at GW. So Herb, it is our custom to begin these conversations by asking for a little personal history. Could you please tell us about where you were born?
I was born in Youngstown, Ohio. With a family, I have one sister, Mary, and my mother and father, great parents. Lived there my entire life until I left after college.
And how did you choose Youngstown State University as your undergraduate college?
Well, having grown up in Youngstown, there is this large university in my hometown. When I attended, there were 16,000 students. It's a large commuter school. I had applied to some other colleges and had been accepted, but I had a lot of friends that were attending YSU, and I was given a pretty generous scholarship, so it seemed like the best decision for me to attend YSU.
And what was your major?
I majored in history. I was sort of a dilettante in college in that I just took courses that looked interesting to me. I had really not a whole lot of idea what I wanted to do ultimately. So I ended up with a history degree, but I was a few courses shy of a double major with English as well.
And when and why did you decide to go to library school?
Well, actually, as a senior in college, I applied to a dual degree program at Case Western Reserve in library science and archives management. I was accepted into the program. During my senior year in college, I did an internship at a local historical society, and I worked in processing archival collections, and it just didn't seem like what I wanted to do. I was in a documents vault for hours at a time, and I wasn't sure that's really what I wanted to do. But I always kept it in the back of my mind that librarianship might be something I wanted to do.
And what made you choose Simmons?
Well, I moved to Boston in 1983, right after graduating from college, and my initial intention was to get a job at a library at one of the many universities in Boston and maybe pursue a master's in history. But I got a job at the Wessel Library at Tufts University, first as an interlibrary loan assistant, and then later on I moved to the government documents collection, and I just fell in love with librarianship, and I wanted to become a librarian, and of course, Simmons is one of the best library schools in the country, so I applied and was accepted to Simmons.
And did you go full-time or part-time?
I worked full-time, and I went part-time in the evening.
Was it hard to go to both school and work full-time?
Well, actually, no, it wasn't, because I worked full-time during the day, and classes were like 6 to 9 at night, but the one hard part was I used to have to often walk by Fenway Park when a game was going on, and I always would rather have gone to the baseball game than go to class.
Now, what did you do between graduating from library school in 1988 and taking your first law librarian position at Willamette in 1994?
Well, my first professional position after graduating from library school was at Yale University. I was appointed a government documents librarian at the Government Documents Center at Yale. I worked that position for 3 years, and at that point I accepted a position as head of the government documents collection at Northwestern University. I worked that job for about 2 years, and my wife at the time, Susan Lewis, accepted a position at Willamette, and we both loved the Pacific Northwest and wanted to go out there, so I followed her out to Willamette and Oregon.
And what prompted you to go to law school?
Well, the director at the time at Willamette College of Law Library, Dick Breen, suggested, why don't you go to law school? And it had never really even occurred to me to go to law school, and I thought a little more about it, and I thought, well, this is like a really good time in my career. I'm sort of in the midpoint of my career. This a great opportunity to sort of retool my skills, so I said, why not? And so I applied for law school and was accepted and started in fall of '94.
And was it more challenging for you to work and attend law school simultaneously?
Well, I had done my undergraduate and my library degree while working, basically full time. So this really wasn't that much different than the other instances.
And did the fact that you were an older, experienced student make the return to education harder or easier?
I thought it made it easier because I was much more focused on studying. I had better work habits, and I just really enjoyed the learning aspect of it.
And having attended law school during those years, did you have any inclination during that period that you wanted to practice law?
I think it's different for me because I sort of did it backwards, whereas I had the library degree first and then I got the law degree. So I never really seriously considered practicing law. I really loved librarianship, and I was just looking forward to becoming a law librarian rather than, a documents librarian or a general, librarian.
Now, in 1998, you arrived here at GW. The differences between institutions in terms of size, culture, and location are substantial from Willamette. Why did you decide to take this position?
Well, I had come to DC numerous times for various events at the government printing office as a document librarian, so I was, pretty familiar with DC already. I have family here as well. I had a great interview at GW. I really liked the staff that I met when I first interviewed. I was very impressed with the collection. GW is in a great location in DC, so I just thought it would be a great opportunity for me to work here. And it turned out to be as well.
And what drew you to the specialization of foreign and comparative international law?
Well, as I said, I was a documents librarian for a number of years, and in both at Yale and at Northwestern, I worked with large international organization collections like United Nations materials, European Union materials, OECD, that entire alphabet soup of international organizations. So I thought, I had that down pretty well. I had also taken courses in international law in law school, which I enjoyed. So I just thought this would just be another opportunity to, pick up some new skills.
And are there any particular endeavors in the FCIL area that you hope to undertake in the coming years?
Well, international law librarianship is such a huge field that, I don't think it's possible for anyone to completely nail down every specialty in international law. So I just want to continue to keep, learning about, emerging areas of international law, and also, just learn about new foreign legal systems as well. I attend the International Association of Law Libraries annual course every year, which is a great opportunity to learn about new legal cultures. For example, last year it was in Barcelona, and the entire conference was on Catalan law, and that was very fascinating to me.
Moving briefly from you to those who inspired you, which individuals would you say have been the most influential in your development as a librarian?
Well, as I said, I was a documents librarian for a large portion of my career, so two of the librarians early in my career that were extremely helpful were David Heiser, who was the documents librarian at the Wessel Library at Tufts University, and Sandra Peterson, who was the head of the documents collection at Yale University. They were both great librarians, and they also, taught me about working with the professional organizations and making a contribution to your profession, and that was something I definitely took away from those two. And also, I have to say that my current director now, Scott Pagel, has been, very supportive of professional development for me, both for taking courses and attending conferences, and that's been, really huge in developing my career as well.
So you have a record of commitment to professional service. You've served as member or chair of multiple AALL and LLSDC committees, including as president at LLSDC. Mm-hmm. Could you describe the professional activities of which you are most proud?
Well, I was always proud of being involved with the Government Documents Roundtable of ALA. They're doing great work and still do with, helping to provide access to public information. I was working with Godord. I was able to meet, great AA, double L people like Bob Oakley and Mary Alice Bache. So that was a wonderful experience working with Godord. But I think, the high point of my career was being president of the Law Librarians Society of DC. I mean, it's the largest chapter of AA, double L, and it has an incredibly dynamic and diverse membership. So that was a really fun and challenging year.
Is there anything from that year that you particularly felt? Sorry, I'll start over. Is there anything from that particular year that most stands out to you?
Well, it happened to be the 65th anniversary of LLSDC that year, so that was kind of special. We had a wonderful reception at the press club, and that was really great. That really stands out as a high point of the year. National Press Club, I should say.
So we're nearing the end of our conversation, Herb. Before closing, however, is there anything you would like to add that we have not touched on so far?
Well, I just thought as I was thinking about this interview that, I'm probably one of the last generation of librarians that started out in an all-print environment and moved into, the computer age, working throughout my career in libraries. And one kind of situation that stands out in my mind is when I worked at Tufts, we were in the process of bringing up an online catalog, and we were actually taking the card catalog out one day, and I was there. We were all pulling out the drawers, pulling the cards out and dumping them in a bin, to send them to recycling. And a professor came up and he watched us, in silence for a while, and he said, "This is the darkest day of the library." And I thought, wow, here we are, we're literally throwing away everything he knows about research. And I thought, well, that's one of the amazing things about librarianship, is that we're always sort of throwing ourselves into the breach, and we're we're adapting new technologies to make access to the collection easier. And I just, that's been one of the most amazing things I think about being a law librarian and being a librarian generally is just, accepting change and accepting new technologies to make things easier for our patrons.
On that note, let me thank you, Herb Somers, on my behalf and that of our colleagues with whom I am working on this history, Pat Kehoe, Frank Hudek, and Dick Spinelli, for participating in today's conversation. Your insights, the information you have shared, and the stories you have told will make a valuable contribution to the oral history of the Law Librarianship series on Spinelli's Law Library Reference Shelf on Hein Online.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you for inviting me to participate.